notice requirement provided for the Open Public Meetings Law has been satisfied. Notice was properly given, said notice having been transmitted to the Courier News on Monday, October 5th, 2020, as well as posting on the city's website. Clerk, may I have a roll call?
Council members Davis.
Present.
Councilman Good.
Present.
Councilman McKenna.
Present.
Councilman McCray.
Present.
Councilwoman Mills Ransom.
Present.
Vice President Armati is absent during roll call. Council President Hockaday.
Here.
Mr. President, we have 6 members present.
Okay, we'll begin with Director West. He's going to go over our best practices inventory.
Good evening,
West.
Council.
Good evening.
This year's best practices includes a total of 60 questions. With core competencies, including 20 questions, best practices, 9 questions. And then there's what they called an unscored survey with 31 questions. We had to answer questions ranging from the personnel, budget, financial administration, liquor licensing, opportunity zones, shared services, cybersecurity, COVID-19 responses, planning and economic development, and several other categories. The requirement this year was that you had to have at least 16 points, to not have any impact or a negative impact on funding from the state. And that's out of a total of 24.5 points. We came in with 22 out of 24.5 points. Any questions, Council?
Any questions from council members?
Yes. Can you repeat that, Mr. West? You said we came in with 22 out of 25 points?
24.5.
Out of
22 out of
25
24.5.
Okay, thank you.
So Director West, what's our typical score for this? Do we have a history? Is there a trend?
We have a history, but unfortunately, the scoring changes each and every year. This is the first time that I can recall the points being 24.5. We've not had a problem, reaching the minimum requirement in order to not be negatively impacted. So this year we had challenges, but again, we came up with enough of the yes answers to move forward and not have any problems with submitting this questionnaire.
Any other questions from council members? Okay, thank you, Director West.
You're welcome.
Okay, we'll now move to consideration of public hearing, second reading and final passage. Clerk, please read MC 2020 by title and certify that the ordinance has complied with all statutory publication requirements. You're on mute. You're on mute.
MC 2020-19 is an ordinance to amend Chapter 16 Vehicles and Traffic, Article 10 Bus Stops, Schedule 12 Bus Stops, Part 1 Municipal Roads, Paragraph 12. It's hereby certified that the notice of the public hearing on this ordinance was published in the Courier News on October 22nd, 2020.
Okay, the floor is now open to any member of the public who would like to speak on this ordinance. In customary fashion, you will need to use the hand icon to raise your hand, and you will be unmuted and permitted to speak.
Or also *9 if you dialed in by phone.
Okay. All right, seeing none, may I have a motion to close public hearing on this ordinance?
Moved.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. May I have a motion to adopt this ordinance on second reading and final passage, and if adopted, shall be published as required by law?
Moved.
Second.
Clerk, roll call, please.
Roll call on MC 2020-19. Council members Davis,
No.
Good,
Yes.
McKenna,
No.
McCray,
Yes.
Mills Ransom,
Yes.
and Council President Hockaday.
Yes.
It's 4 in favor, 2 opposed. The ordinance has been adopted on second reading and final passage.
Thank you. Clerk, please read MC 2020-20 by title and further certify that it has complied with all statutory publication requirements.
2020-20 is an ordinance authorizing the execution of a financial agreement with 1369 South Plainfield Urban Renewal LLC and granting a tax exemption with respect to certain property identified on the city's tax map as block 624 lot 12 and identified in the city's tax record as 1369 to 1403 South Avenue, and authorizing an amendment to the redevelopment agreement with 1369 South Plainfield Urban Renewal LLC. It is hereby certified that the notice of the public hearing on this ordinance was published in the Courier News on October 22nd, 2020.
Thank you. The floor is now open to any member of the public who would like to speak on this ordinance. So you have one individual who's raised their hand.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can. Would you like to speak on this ordinance?
Yes, this is Alejandra Boleta. I live in 120 North Ave, Plainfield. I was just wondering if the council could answer my question on how this tax exemption could help the Plainfield community, if by any chance this is going to raise our taxes.
Thank you for your question.
Council President, maybe somebody that's going to vote for it wants to answer that question. I'm voting against it, so.
Director West or perhaps Minchello. I'm sure she said council. I don't know if she meant corporation council. But can anybody address the tax implications of this project?
Yes, Council President, I believe Director Jackson can address that.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, with this tax abatement, the city of Plainfield would get more than it does currently in property taxes from this particular site. So the answer is yes, increased revenue for the city, no additional taxes as a result of this project for taxpayers.
Thank you. Is there anyone else from the public that wishes to speak? And Ms. Arboleda said thank you to you, Director, in the comments. All right, may I have a motion to close public hearing on this ordinance?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. May I have a motion to adopt this ordinance on second reading and final passage? And if adopted, the ordinance shall be published as required by law.
Moved.
Second.
Clerk, may I have a roll call?
Council members Davis,
Yes.
Councilman Good,
Yes.
Councilman McKenna,
No.
Councilman McCray,
Yes.
Councilwoman Mills Ransom,
Yes.
and Council President Hockaday.
Yes.
5 in favor, 1 opposed. This ordinance has been adopted on second reading and final passage.
Thank you. Clerk, please read MC 2020-21 by title and further certify that the ordinance has complied with all statutory publication requirements.
MC 2021 is an ordinance to amend, supplement Chapter 2, Article 9, Department of Public Works to include Section 17, Division of the Parking Utility. It is hereby certified that the notice of this public hearing was published in the Courier News on October 22nd, 2020.
Floor is now open to any member of the public who would like to speak on this ordinance. Looking for hands raised from the public. Or #9, or is it *9?
*9.
*9 for any callers. Okay, seeing none, may I have a motion to close public hearing on this ordinance?
Moved.
Second.
May I have a motion to adopt this ordinance on second reading and final passage? And if adopted, the ordinance shall be published as required by law.
So moved.
Second.
Clerk, may I have a roll call?
Roll call on MC 2020-21. Council members Davis,
Yes.
Good,
Yes.
McKenna,
No.
Gray,
Yes.
Councilwoman Mills Ransom.
Yes.
Record reflect that Vice President Armati has joined us. We're doing a roll call on MC 2021. Council Vice President Armati
Yes.
and Council President Hockaday.
Yes.
6 in favor, 1 opposed. MC 2020-21 has been adopted on second reading and final passage.
Okay, thank you. We now move to public comments limited to resolutions, motions, and ordinances to be considered on first reading. A total of 30 minutes has been allocated for public comments limited to resolutions and ordinances being considered. If you wish to be heard, hit the hand icon and you'll be unmuted. Give your name and address for the record. Each speaker will be given 3 minutes. The floor is now open. Okay, seeing none, may I have a motion to close public comments on resolution?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition or abstentions? Okay, public comment on resolutions to be considered this evening is now closed. Okay. We'll now move to resolutions. Are there any comments on council resolutions 298-20 to 300-20?
Council President, I have a comment.
Go right ahead, Councilwoman Davis.
I am happy to see the resolution thanking Ms. Cathcart for her service here at the city. I know we did a formal celebration despite COVID last week, but I love the fact that we are able to thank employees for their service to the city, because they come in every day, time in and time out, to make sure that this city keeps running while we're here. And we have the spotlight to make the decisions or the glamorous things. They're here to make sure that the small, diligent things continue every day. And Ms. Cathcart was a great example of that. And she is truly going to be missed, because she was an institution in City Hall and she knew all things City of Plainfield. So I'm glad that we were able to recognize her as a body.
I share those sentiments. Yes, Councilman McKenna.
I would just like to second what Councilwoman Davis said, and also add that I think we should have denied her retirement, because I always look forward to coming in and seeing her smiling face. She was a wonderful presence in City Hall, and I will truly miss interacting with her.
Any other comments? Okay, do we have a motion on 298 to 300?
Moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition or abstentions? Hearing none, those resolutions are approved. Mr. Clerk, please proceed with the reading of the remaining resolutions.
Yes, we come to resolution 301-20, which is authorizing the city of Plainfield to utilize Leda Gonzalez as an interpreter for interpretation services on the municipal court.
Okay, are any questions from council members?
Yes.
Councilwoman Davis?
So I have 2 questions. And second one will probably be answered by the first one. So why can't we utilize staff that we already have at the courts for interpreting services? And how much would it cost us or save us if we did utilize that staff?
I can answer that question, Councilwoman. In the past, we did in fact utilize staff. However, the courts now require you to hire a certified independent translator for municipal courts. So in short, it's against the law to now use in-house staff for interpreting services.
Thank you.
Any further questions from council members? Do we have a motion?
Moved.
How about a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition or abstentions? Hearing none, this resolution is approved.
Resolution 30220, authorizing an appropriation for Renown Coughlin Mancello LLC.
Do we have questions from council members?
Yes.
Councilwoman?
How much have we already paid this firm and how much was budgeted for them for this year?
I can answer that, Councilwoman. The firm was originally appropriated $65,000 for the year. We are about to exceed that appropriation, and we're requiring an additional $30,000 to continue to provide services through the end of the year. As far as the budget is concerned, I don't have the total budget number for you, but I can assure you that this money is allocated in the litigation defense line of the budget, and there's no requirement to do any transfer in order to make this additional appropriation.
Thank you.
Looking for other questions from colleagues? Councilman McKenna?
Yes. So I didn't have a chance to go back and look at the video from the first council meeting when we appropriated some funding, and then also during budget deliberations. But there's a lot of conversation about keeping a lid on legal fees. I know there are times when that is not always under our control, but we are adding $70,000, and in addition, the next resolution 303-20 will have a total of $170,000 in total appropriation. So I think, as we talked before, I think we need to have some sort of a process in place to manage these costs and get an understanding of why our legal fees continue to rise. We're not in the business, and no offense to Mr. Mancello, but we're not in the business of supporting attorneys here. So, at some point we need to compare ourselves with other municipalities of a similar size and see if we're doing this the wrong way, or if we get on fights that we shouldn't get on. Because this is starting to get to be a lot of money, and we're throwing it around like it's nothing. And this is all coming from the taxpayers. Just my comment.
Thank you, Councilman. And if I can only provide some historical expenditures with regard, at least to Labor Council, and that's the next resolution. But I think I can address that now, Council President, if that's okay with you. As when it comes to either litigation or labor costs, it's not an exact science. Historically, though, the expenditure for Labor Council has been approximately $1,000. However, we're always in a defensive posture because we have to respond either to the—
Just 1 second. I think Director Childress isn't on mute, so I can't quite hear everything you're saying. There you go. Thank you, Director.
I'm saying is that the reason that it's an inexact science is because we are generally, or more often than not, in a defensive posture when it comes to either litigation or labor issues, whether it be disciplinary actions, grievances filed, or civil actions filed against us. So historically, I would say that labor costs have generally been in the range that they are this year, maybe a little bit more than normal. But we are responding to what we receive and the cases that come our way. Happy to be as transparent with any council member who'd like to discuss, the breadth of cases and matters that we handle in our office. But at the beginning of the year, I try my best to forecast what those expenditures are going to be, with the understanding that we're at the mercy of the cases that come our way.
And I appreciate that comment, but in all fairness, and I don't mean this disrespectfully, but you're not in the world where you're looking to control those costs. You're looking to defend those cases. So if we have an inordinate number of labor cases every year, then it has nothing to do with you. It has something to do with further down the pipeline that's causing these constant labor dispute that are ending up in court and in settlements. So, that's not something that is entirely out of the city's control. And I think at some point I would like to see like a 5-year average of legal fees around all of the categories to see if we're even attempting to get control over this, or if we're just writing checks for everything. We've got to be a little smarter about this. And if we're doing something wrong when we're dealing with employees and we end up with grievances, then we need to kind of get a check on ourselves too, so that we're not creating that sort of environment or making those mistakes when we do discipline. Because these can't just be, we can't just stick our finger in the air in the wind and just say the costs are the costs, nothing we can do about it. We have to try to do something about it.
Understood. Thanks, Councilman. Any other questions from council members? Okay, do we have a motion for resolution 302-20?
Yes.
move.
Move.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No.
Any opposition? Clerk, can I have a roll call?
Council members Davis,
Yes.
Councilman Good,
Yes.
Councilman McKenna,
No.
Councilman McCray,
Yes.
Councilwoman Mills Ransom,
yes,
Vice President Armati,
Yes.
Council President Hockaday.
Yes.
6 in favor, 1 opposed. Resolution's been adopted. Resolution 303-20, authorizing an appropriation for Ruderman and Roth LLC.
Any questions from council members?
Yes, Corporation Counsel, you kind of already spoke to this, but if you can get me the numbers on what was budgeted for our legal defense line and then the numbers of what was budgeted and the numbers of what we already spent, that would be appreciated.
Certainly. Will do.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions from council members?
Council President, Mr. Mancello, will that be supplied to all the council members or just ones that request?
Certainly. What I think would be helpful is I'll show what has been budgeted for the Office of Corporation Counsel and what we've expended to date. I can certainly provide that information to all the council members.
Thank you, sir.
Council President?
Yes.
The resolution states that we passed two resolutions to fund $140,000 for labor and personnel, and this is an additional 40, so that would take it to 170.
That's correct. Yes. This is our third resolution to the firm of Ruderman and Roth for labor services.
Any additional questions or comments from council members? Hearing none, do we have a motion and a second?
Moved.
Second.
Okay, clerk, may I have a roll call?
Call on resolution 303-20, moved by Councilman Good, seconded by Councilwoman Davis. Council members Davis,
Yes.
Good,
Yes.
McKenna,
No.
McCray,
Yes.
Mills Ransom,
yes,
Vice President Armati,
Yes.
Council President Hockaday.
Yes.
6 in favor, 1 opposed. Resolution's been adopted. Resolution 304-20, authorizing settlement in the matter of Smith versus the City of Plainfield.
Any questions from council members?
Yes. Mr. Corporation Counsel or Mr. West, can one of you just speak to what do payouts such as these raise our insurance premiums or deductions?
Okay, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead, Dave.
Well, it's difficult to say at this point. Obviously, when we come up for a renewal on our insurance policy, what they look at is our totality of our claims history. So that this matter will be balanced against other expenditures. So this particular matter in a vacuum has the potential to raise our premiums, but I can't say because there are so many factors that go into a renewal that it's impossible at this point to say whether or not this would impact our premiums to go up or down.
Okay. When are we going to, do we renew every year with our insurance company, or is it
No.
every couple of years?
It's every 3 years we renew with our joint insurance fund.
Dave, I'd like to add one statement to that, though. We have come back to council every year because, to approve the new insurance amount. So it's a 3-year deal, and we come back and say, here's our request for approval to move forward to year 2 and year 3. So we'll be back next month, hopefully, with the proposed budget from the PGIF.
Okay, Mr. West, when you come with that request, can you also come with what like the difference would be? So if I'm understanding correctly, like we're not sure if it would raise, are we in a so maybe the question is, are we already in a 3-year contract? Or are we renewing for another 3 years?
We renewed last year, so we're in
Okay.
year 1 of a 3-year contract. When I come back in December, it'll be for year 2.
Okay, and so it doesn't go up because we've already agreed to those terms with the 3-year contract?
No, every year we get a budget. So I will be coming to you with what that budget is going to be for 2021.
Okay, when you come back with it, can you bring what 2020 is so we can compare the two, if you don't mind?
One way or the other, you will know how much, whether there's an increase or a decrease in the budget dollars.
Thank you, that's all I need to know.
Thank you. Any other questions from council members? Hearing and seeing none, do we have a motion?
Moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition or abstentions? This resolution is approved.
Resolution 305-20, appointing Ronald E. West as the fund commissioner and Abby Levinson as the alternate fund commissioner for the joint insurance fund.
Are there any questions from council members? Hearing and seeing none, do we have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition or abstentions? This resolution is approved.
Resolution 306-20, authorizing approval to execute 3 agreements with PSE&G.
Questions from council members?
Yes.
Councilwoman Davis.
Mr. West, can you explain how the projected cash flow would work? And also, can you just give a better understanding of the rationale behind a $58,000 investment that only yields $39,000 over 5 years?
All right, just to give council a complete understanding of the project, total project cost is $195,337.78, of which the city's piece of the cost is the $58,601.33 that you cited. There is a state program that allows, us to participate, and if we pursue energy conservation measures, we get up to 70% off. And this cost to us of $58,601.33 is spread across 36 months, so we don't have to pay it up front. So how do we arrive at the anticipated savings? We have to factor in what we expect the energy cost to be on a month, to month basis, against the added cost increase, which for us is $1,627.82 a month would be added to our PSE&G bill. And that bill is $84,000 a month. So for what we think is a very small investment, on a monthly basis, we get to get improved, energy utilization and get to be a little greener, at least in these three buildings or three areas, which are City Hall, Municipal Court, and Police Headquarters. So it's really targeted at the fact that we're expecting our energy costs in those three buildings to be less. So that's how you start accruing savings. But the real answer is, after 36 months, we will have paid for that equipment. So all of the savings then goes right to the bottom line.
Thank you.
Council President?
Yes.
Director West, is this being paid for out of capital improvement?
No, this is going to come right out of operating expense.
Is there a reason we wouldn't do it out of capital improvement? Because it's got the lifespan.
Well, remember, capital improvement really starts looking at 5-year initiatives. And this one, we're paying it over 36 months. And the other key thing is the fact that, we budget in the area of $500,000 for this category and another $500 for outside lighting. So I expect that we will have, or hope to have, ample money in the budget to just pay for this, $1,627.82 a month, particularly if we become more efficient in these three areas. I'm hoping to see fairly immediate, improvements in our efficiency or energy efficiency. And I think it's just worth doing from an operating perspective as opposed to a capital improvement perspective. The other thing too is there's a timeline. So this is something we need to get done, quickly. They wouldn't wait for us to go through the process of establishing the capital budget improvement, going through 2 readings. We might miss the window because there's only a certain amount of money made available by the state for this program.
Okay.
So the intent is to get this behind us, get it done, very quickly, and start getting the benefits sooner as opposed to later.
Well, let's hope that budget money isn't needed next year.
Any other questions from council members? Seeing and hearing none, do we have a motion?
Yes, moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition or abstention? This resolution is approved.
Resolution 30720, authorizing transfers between the calendar year 2020 appropriations of the general fund of the city of Plainfield.
Entertaining questions from council members.
Yes, I have a question.
Councilwoman Davis.
Director West, can you just explain why we need to transfer money to salary and wages when we've been having people work from home during this pandemic? Is this overtime money that we're transferring over, or where is this falling in with salary and wages?
In these groups, yes, you're looking at pretty much overtime money in IT, communications, engineering, in those groups. There's also $10,000 in there to be added to the tax assessor's budget for additional appraisals. But yes, this is overtime money that we've picked up as opposed to anything else.
Okay, so I guess the next question would be, why do we have overtime costs when people have been working from home?
Well, IT's been working in lots of different areas, and to be responsive to COVID-19, we've had them working all sorts of hours. So that would be one, and everybody's not working from home. There are many of us in the office every day.
Okay, and so I think my follow-up question would be, because I know at the beginning of the pandemic, we did have a more flexible schedule for employees. Why couldn't we flex people's schedule to save on these overtime costs?
I can't, well, I would say people are being flexed, but again, when you look at what we had to do in terms of IT and communications, just think about all that was done and all of the communications, and a lot of that's been done out of hours to build up. And so now we've got a shortfall. And so we're looking to make a transfer of funds. And what we're doing there is we're taking the unspent, money in the business administrator salary line to do that. So this is not at an additional cost to the city, but we're looking to just move money that's available to these accounts so that they don't exceed their budgets any more than they have to date, so that they end up the year balanced.
Okay, so this might be my last question. Did most of these occurrences happen in that time where it was like the beginning of COVID when we were beginning to shut down, or are these recent expenditures that we're now transferring the money for?
This is pretty much, expenses that we incurred at the start of COVID, as opposed to now. These aren't current things. We're not allowed to do transfers before now.
Okay, thank you.
Any other council members have inquiries? Seeing and hearing none, do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No.
Clerk, may I have a roll call?
Bruce Davis,
Yes.
Good,
Yes.
McKenna,
No.
McCray,
Yes.
Ransom,
Yes.
Vice President Armati,
Yes.
Council President Hockaday.
Yes.
6 in favor, 1 opposed. This resolution has been adopted. Resolution 30820, authorizing approval to amend the 2020 municipal budget by inserting special items of revenue.
Any questions from council members? Hearing and seeing none, is there a motion?
Moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition or abstentions? This resolution is approved.
Resolution 30920, authorizing the award of a professional services agreement to Sockler Realty Services Group.
Any questions from council members? Seeing and hearing none, do we have a motion?
Moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition or abstentions? This resolution is approved.
Resolution 31020, authorizing adjustments to tax accounts.
Any questions from council members? Hearing
Yes,
and
I have a
seeing-
question.
Oh, okay, Councilwoman Davis, go right ahead.
So Director West, with these tax appeals, how does it ultimately affect the bottom line when it comes to budgeting for the city?
In this case, the 92 items that we're looking at, a few of them, in fact, a few of them become pilots. So those pilot payments are expected to exceed what we were receiving in the way of tax revenues. The others, are reductions. People have filed tax appeals. And so, when we get back, when we do the 2021 budget, we're going to have to make adjustments. And so all other property owners get to share, because the municipal budget isn't necessarily going to change to the point where we can make up for these lost tax revenues. It'll just be spread across the universe. So all taxpayers pay whenever there are tax appeals.
From year to
Thank you.
year, do we anticipate or budget for a certain amount of tax appeals? Those happen every year.
We don't budget for it. What we've been trying to do is see if we can get our hands around reducing the number of tax appeals. So this year we're talking about 233 cases, which is considerably down from the prior years where we've been as high as 500 cases. And it's something that we look at, and we take into consideration other things that we may need to do, in order to, lessen the need for tax appeals. But right now, we do take a look, but we have no sense of who's going to come in, and make requests. What you hope is that the economy strengthens so that your commercial entities don't come in looking for adjustments because of lost revenue. You also hope that our community feels that they can afford to pay the taxes at the current rate and don't come in with lots of appeals. But that's speaking, optimistically. And so we do see the appeals every year. At some point, we'll hope that goes away.
Any other council member have inquiries? Hearing and seeing none, do we have a motion?
Moved.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition or abstentions? This resolution is approved.
Resolution 31120, authorizing approval to apply and accept New Jersey Department of Highway Traffic Safety Drive Sober or Get Pulled Over campaign.
Any questions from council members? Hearing and seeing none, do we have a motion?
Moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition or abstention? This resolution is approved.
Resolution 31220, authorizing change order number 1 final to Brennan Brothers Contracting LLC.
Questions from council members? Hearing and seeing none, do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition or abstentions? This resolution is approved.
Resolution 31320, authorizing the release of a performance bond to Z-Tech Contracting.
Any questions from council members? Seeing and hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Moved.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposition or abstentions? This resolution is approved.
Resolution 31420, authorizing approval for street opening at 83 Andover Avenue.
Any questions from council members?
Yes.
Councilwoman Davis?
So Director Dabney, I am glad to see this on the agenda, but I just have one question. What happens if there's an emergency and somebody needs heat or gas, or they need the street open to provide them with whatever service they need? But it seems like they have to wait for council approval to have that happen. So what happens in emergency situations?
Good question. What happens with that, Councilwoman, if something comes to the point where it's an emergency, we will take the action and get everything repaired, come to do the work, and then we'll just send a resolution after the fact, let you know it was doing based on emergency. I said that would happen if you went out in the cold or whatever. No.
Thank you, but how would a resident who is in an emergency situation know who to contact? So for example, this resident reached out to PSC&G, who then reached out to the city, who then got an email back that the street opening was declined. And then the resident had to go through a whole lot of steps to then get it to this point, to then get it on the agenda. So in times of emergencies, what's the most efficient flow for residents to make sure that they're not waiting a month or 2 weeks or a month and a half for it to be on a council agenda?
The most efficient flow is for the resident to go through the utility that's doing business, that they do business with. They know how it works, and they'll submit a letter, have them submit a letter to us, and we'll act on it right away if it's that type of emergency. In this instance, this is more of a conversion from oil to gas. But in any type of emergency situation, they will let the utility know. Utility will let them know who to contact. They will send a letter to my office, and we'll react on that right away.
So does it have to be a formal mail letter, or can it be an email? Because we know the post office is a little slow.
It could be an email, no matter what. Once they get it to us, we'll review everything and we'll look into it and we'll address it. And we'll come before you all with the resolution to address it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Is this information available on the website? So for residents who may not be watching the council meeting tonight?
Regarding the moratorium?
Regarding this process flow, and if an emergency was to occur, how would they know if they're not watching the meeting right now what that process is?
They would definitely know, because if they have no heat, they'll let public service know who will have to show up to address that. If this all comes through utilities, because this is a moratorium to open the street for street opening, etc. So they would always know that because they would have to deal with the utility, who would know exactly what takes place with this when we do this. So they'll always have a way of knowing, no matter who the resident is. If there's something dealing with the street opening, like this gentleman here with a conversion, they need a conversion. So they had to go through public service to do that, to change over from oil to gas. So that will always be available, whether it's water, sewer, whatever it may be, they'll know and they'll contact for street opening. That's only, of course, if it's a 5-year, moratorium on the road. But they'll always have information to get that. That'll never stop. The moratorium will always exist.
Council President, may I add something?
Yes, you may, Mayor.
An emergency is an emergency. No approval is needed from council if there is a true emergency. You take care of the emergency and you can get approvals after the fact. Now, in terms of this conversion, if someone is converting from electric to gas, that's not an emergency. But if it's a true emergency, you take care of the emergency and then you come for approval after the fact. For example, if a building is about to fall, and create damage to people's property and potential loss of life, you don't need council approval before you demolish the building. You take care of the emergency and then you come to council. And that's how it works.
Any other questions or comments from council members? Okay, do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition or abstentions? This resolution is approved.
Resolution 31520, authorizing approval to apply and accept an application to the New Jersey Department of Community Affairs.
Any questions from council members?
Yes.
Councilwoman Davis?
Director Dabney, can you just explain to the public what a great opportunity that this grant affords to members of our community who may be differently abled?
Yes, it helps them with aquatics, teach them, trains them in aquatics, teenagers with disabilities, which is a good thing. It's something good. It's a recreation program to help them learn to swim, etc. So it's something positive.
Thank you for that. Any other questions from council members? Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Moved.
What about a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition or abstentions? Hearing none, this resolution is approved.
Council President, I'd just like to say, I think this is an awesome resolution. Moving
Thank you.
For our disabled, this grant.
Agreed.
Resolution 31620, authorizing approval for lien placements, property cleanup of 15 properties.
Any questions from council members? Hearing and seeing none, can I have a motion and a second?
It's moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition or abstentions? This resolution is approved.
Resolution 317, adopting the calendar year 2021 operating budget for the Central Budget District Management Corporation.
Any questions from council?
Yes.
Councilwoman Davis?
So Director Jackson, as we begin to get more mixed-use projects online, how do those retail portions of those mixed-use projects affect the SID budget?
They don't. The SID budget is based on a assessment for the landlord, the property owner. And so the property owner, the assessment funds the particular project. So in terms of the business itself, it doesn't have a direct impact on the SID budget, but it is an assessment. It's a percent of the value of the property. So that's important. As we increase the property values, certainly the SID budget could potentially increase as well.
Thank you. I think I answered my question. I think I asked my question incorrectly, but you answered it correctly with what I was looking for. Thank you.
Council President?
Yes, Councilman.
So looking at the budget and having been familiar with the prior SID's budget, the thing that I notice in this one is a lot of overhead costs and very minuscule numbers with respect to programming, and marketing is pointless. That budget line is just useless. You know, my feeling is, just based on what I've seen the SID do in the last year or so, is you ought to probably give the money back to the property owners and close up the SID, because I don't see a lot of return in this, and they're spending $2,000 a month in rent. That's $24,000 in a $190,000 budget, and you haven't even paid for the director, and apparently she's got an assistant plus interns that are paid. So I just don't see this program as being very effective for those people within the SID.
Okay.
Any other questions from council members?
No, I just like to make a statement that I think the statements that Councilman McKenna made are probably true from what he knows, but the SID has been doing a lot of good work. And they have also been training themselves to do better at what they do. And one of the great things they did was to take some of their money and deal with supplying grants to small businesses during this COVID pandemic. And I happened to accompany them to some of them, and the small business owners were definitely very, very elated to get the information. You can keep up with SID if you go to its website, which is very current. It's kept current, and you will see those things that they are doing. They're an active body.
I appreciate the councilwoman's comments, and I would only say that I have observed what they're doing, and I've also observed what SIDs in other towns are doing. And if you really want to see what a SID does, you might want to visit Rahway, because they're on the ball. They worked really hard with all of the businesses within the SID when it came to PPP and other grant funding programs, and they were also really, really involved in getting outdoor dining, street closures. We didn't really do. So while it's great that they are doing something for the money, I mean, if you graded it, I don't think it's worthwhile. It's my opinion.
I think that we need to, not a back and forth, but I think we need to understand that this SID is inventing itself based on improprieties in the last SID, and that what they are doing is making sure that they are reaching out and they're seeing what other SIDs are doing, but at the same time, making sure that they know how to move forward and to help in those things that SIDs are supposed to do. And some of the things that you're seeing with other cities may be that they're more established, but I can believe that the SID will get there.
And I appreciate it. By the way, the council is supposed to have a back and forth. So I appreciate those comments. I think that one of the big issues that we have with these budgets is that we do these budgets and we all vote for them and then we go on our way. And with these budgets should have been a presentation of what they did and a presentation of what they're going to do and how they're going to measure it. Because all we're doing is taking $190,000 that comes from the landowners, and we're giving it to a group that's mostly spending it on overhead. So, you know, if there's no measurable, there's no goals, there's no outcome, you can't even go back and say that the director's not hitting her marks. She just gets $190,000 every year, and maybe next year she'll get more with some of the pilots. I mean, I just don't think it's, or some of the redevelopment projects. I don't think this is a good way to spend property owners' money. It's just, it's a little bit.
Council President, if I may.
Yes, you may.
So I just want to push back on a couple of things that Councilman McKenna says. While I do agree with him that goals and objectives are important here, and that we should have gotten that with this budget. I have to disagree with we should compare our SID to Rawway, especially when our SID, this new SID, is only 2 years old. So that's not really fair if Rawway has had a more established SID. Secondly, I think that the SID has a board that we all provide advice and consent on. And I think that that is the board's job to provide that primary oversight about whether or not the executive director is meeting her goals, whether or not the executive director is worth the money that they're paying her, whether or not the money that they spent is being used in ways that we think is adequate. But I think that if the councilman is requesting more evidence or more due diligence when it comes to the SID budget, I think that's a legitimate concern. But to try to get into the weeds about whether or not the SID director is entitled to how much she makes, or whether or not the SID should be paying what they're paying for rent, especially when on this council we've approved rents for other city divisions without this much back and forth. So I think while Councilman McKenna has a right to his own opinion, I think we need to keep the focus on what the focus should be. And I don't think we are, because we're really more caught up with why the SID director is getting paid as much as she gets paid, or why the SID is paying as much rent as they're paying rent, when we don't know what the current rent salary, well, what the current rent level or the market rate is for that area. And the council cannot decide how much property owners charge for their rent. So it's really a moot point to get in a council meeting and say, well, they're paying too much in overhead.
Well,
especially when they have a board, especially when they have a board that is supposed to provide that oversight.
So first of all, I agree with you on some of those things. We give advice and consent to that board. The board's supposed to do their job. It's a 501c3, so it's not a city entity. And we also have fiduciary oversight over the budget. That's why we're voting on it. So we have a responsibility, because we are putting an assessment on properties within that zone and taking that money and giving it to this organization. So we most certainly do have a fiscal responsibility and oversight over this. And with respect to comparing it to other SIDs of whatever age, it's best practices. We started the meeting talking about best practices. It doesn't matter how old they are. They can get involved and start having some best practices and reporting goals and how they're hitting those goals and whether they're achieving those goals on the backs of hard-earned money that is being paid from landowners down there. That's what they should be doing. That's the responsible thing to do in a business. This is a nonprofit business that we have oversight over. And I think we all need to get a little bit more involved with what their goals are and what they're trying to achieve, because a lot of it's wasted energy. And I'm not talking about the director's salary. I'm saying when you have that much going towards overhead, there isn't much left to do much anything else.
So
could I make one last statement? President, I think when we put out information, we need to put out information that's true and factual, especially when we want to quote salaries and we want to talk about whether people have goals and objectives or whatever. I think we need to know if those things exist, and we need to know exactly what figures are when we put them out. So I think I will stop talking about the SID, but I will reiterate that they are reinventing themselves, and they are not a 501c3. They are trying to apply for that. So just be accurate with information that you put out, and know from the person who sits with it as a liaison from the council that they're doing those that are necessary to become a better entity in what they do. So that's all I'd like to say. Just be accurate when you talk.
So Director Jackson, before you begin, if you can reach out to the SID executive director, and I understand it's going to be after the vote, but if you can reach out to her and you can ask her for those goals and objectives and send them over to us, that would be greatly appreciated.
Okay. So for everyone,
Councilwoman Mills Ransom should have them. She's the liaison. Maybe she could just email them to us.
Yeah. So for everyone's benefit, Councilwoman Mills Ransom is correct. There are rules and regulations that govern SID, Special Improvement District. I recently, and I will be glad to send that out to all of council, explaining the roles and responsibilities of board members associated with the SID. It is on the New Jersey Department of Community Affairs website. If council wants a SID report in terms of results, we'll gladly provide that. Mario Camino is the president. He has done that already. But in past budgets, it wasn't required, so we will present that to you. Also be assured that the SID is not only accountable to council as it relates to its overall budget, but the SID is accountable to the property owners that pay the taxes via special assessment. And they will be having going forward, which is part of what I educated them about, is a general meeting on an annual basis. So I think it's very important to really understand what a SID is. And as Councilwoman Mills Ransom has said, she sat in those meetings, she understands the role of a SID. And the SID is not the executive director. The SID is the board who represents property owners and business owners. Thank you.
Director Jackson, just for oversight purposes, would it be possible to provide maybe a quarterly update in terms of their accomplishments, whether it's by, through you or through our liaison?
I think quarterly, Council Vice President, may be too frequently. If you want a semi-annual report, I'm sure that they would be glad to do that. They meet monthly.
Okay, either or.
Okay, and I would assure you that the SID, in terms of some of its results, not only provided grants to small businesses, they provided workshops. So if you go to their website, you'll see where they provide workshops and resources to small business owners. They've been a conduit for getting out information about federal, state, and local programs available to small businesses. And so I think it's important to really understand what they do, and I will be glad to provide that report. Thank you.
Mr. President?
Yes, Mayor.
I think it is important for us to understand that the SID is an autonomous body. And although I may not necessarily like all of the decisions that are made by the SID, I am one who believes that the SID ought to work in partnership with the city. I think that as an economic development entity, I would describe it as such for the member businesses, and with our economic development goals, I think it's important that the SID works with the city. But we need to understand that the SID does not report to the council. The SID does not report to the mayor. I grant advice, and you grant advice and consent upon my nominations. But to ask the SID for their goals and objectives and so on and so forth, it's beginning to sound as if the SID reports to the city, if it reports to the council, if it reports to the mayor. I believe that it is important for us to understand and know what the SID is doing, but for us to have certain expectations, I think that we're overstepping. I think that the member businesses, if they're satisfied with the work of the SID, they will continue to be members and will continue to fund their budget, which we are ratifying. But at the end of the day, the SID doesn't report to us, and we need to understand that. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
Moved.
Second.
Okay, clerk, can we have a roll call?
Council members Davis,
Yes.
Good,
Yes.
Kenna,
No.
McCray,
Yes.
Mills Ransom,
Yes.
Armati,
Yes.
Council President Hockaday.
Yes.
6 in favor, 1 opposed. Resolution's been adopted. Resolution 31820, designating SRV redeveloper, SRV Plainfield Urban Renewal LLC, and SRV Plainfield 2 Urban Renewal LLC as redeveloper for certain properties in the city of Plainfield.
Any questions from council members? Seeing and hearing none, do we have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition or abstentions? Hearing none, this resolution is approved.
Resolution 31920, authorizing a lease agreement with Superior Office Systems.
Any questions from council members?
I just have one quick question and maybe a
Go
follow-up.
right ahead.
How many are we replacing 8 copiers?
No, we're not replacing them. We're renewing the lease with the company.
So we're just we're keeping the same equipment and having a new lease?
Yes.
And have we done any kind of analysis to figure out how to get, and you know, that's $2,600 a month. It's not a killer, but you know, we started out very early in talking about the PSE&G, energy savings, you know, green, et cetera, et cetera. We've come up with a plan to start chopping these copiers out just from the standpoint of toner and paper and waste and all that stuff, and have a goal of going paperless?
Well, one of the things that we did when we were evaluating the renewal is that we looked at usage from previous years and what the overage was, and we went with the average, which was a reduction in what was previously used. But at the moment, all of those printers are utilized, all those copiers and printers are utilized on a daily basis. So
I guess my question is, do we have a goal to not utilize them?
I'm sorry, I'm not hearing you. Do you have a goal to what?
To not utilize them as much.
To not utilize them as much?
Yeah.
That's not something that we have, that's not a study that we have undertaken right now. It's certainly something that we could look at in the future.
So the IT department has no program in place to try to go paperless?
There are a lot of things that have been digitized, and we try to push people to do that, but the copiers, there are still a lot of programs in place that need to utilize the printers and copiers on a daily basis.
Thank you. Any other questions from council members? Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, clerk can have a roll call.
Council members Davis,
Yes.
Councilman Good,
Yes.
Councilman McKenna,
Yes.
Councilman McCray,
Yes.
Councilwoman Mills Ransom,
Yes.
Vice President Armati,
Yes.
and Council President Hockney.
Yes.
That's unanimous. That resolution has been adopted. Resolution 3/2020, awarding the contract to Lexington Advisors LLC.
Any questions from council members? Hearing and seeing none, may I have a motion?
Moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition or abstentions? Resolution is approved.
Resolution 3/2120, authorizing the submission of a 2020 National Endowment for the Arts Our Town grant application.
Any questions from council members? Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition or abstentions? This resolution is approved.
Resolution 3/2220, authorizing the submission and acceptance of the Community Development Block Grant Program Year 47.
Questions from my council colleagues?
Yes.
Councilwoman Davis?
Director Brown, has the Community Development Department and the CDBG committee who looked at these submissions considered how some of these grants could be impacted if COVID lasted well into next year?
So thank you, Councilwoman, for that question. Yes, we always look at it since COVID has started. But what the county and the federal government has asked us to do is go forward as if it will not be a problem. And if we have to curtail it or we have to create extensions for which these projects are to be done or accomplished, then we will ask for it. And they're trying to build in mechanisms for that to happen.
Thank you.
How many, Council President?
Yes, please go ahead, Council.
Director Brown, how many extensions can one do in a case like this, being that we are in a pandemic?
Right. So I'll be quite honest, I don't know what that answer would be. We do already pre-COVID have a way in which you can apply to the committee, which is the other municipalities, if you need an extension to get something done. And we've used that as a municipality. What this looks like for COVID, I'm not too sure. And I think that's the discussion that's going on the county and federal levels, because they have to figure out how we're going to go forward with this. If, for instance, we do have a shutdown again, or if some of these activities can't be done because of COVID.
Thank you, Director Brown. Appreciate
Sure.
it.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions? Do we have a motion?
Moved.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition or abstentions? Hearing none, this resolution is approved. Mute.
Resolution 32320, authorizing approval to apply and accept the New Jersey Department of Community Affairs Block Grant Fund for 2021.
Questions from council colleagues?
I just have a comment.
Go right ahead, Councilwoman.
I think these are great funds that really help a lot of residents. I think with the effects of COVID still being felt by residents to this day, that these funds become more necessary than they have in the past. I want to applaud Plainfield Action Services for the work that they're doing in getting the word out to residents about these funds. So Director Brown, if you can extend my thanks to that division and just let them know to keep up the great work.
Absolutely will. Thank you for that. And on behalf of Plainfield Action Services, thank you.
Any other questions from council members? We have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition, abstentions? This resolution is approved.
Resolution 32420, urging the United States House of Representatives to agree to a comprehensive package of economic relief.
Any questions from council members?
Yes.
Oh, go ahead. Ms. Davis.
How will we send this out to the House of Representatives? Are we going to send it to just our representative here in Plainfield? Are we going to send it to our entire New Jersey delegation? Or are we going to work to send it to every member of the House?
Usually resolutions that get forwarded to our representatives are sent directly to the representatives that represent our district.
Thank you.
Just a procedural thing. Why are we doing it for the House of Representatives and not Congress? That's only one half of the building. The other half.
Right. You know what? I thought the one that I submitted had all of Congress, but I'll double check.
It says, I read it just to double check.
Yep. So
it says House of Representatives.
Mm-hmm.
So you want it to just be to one side, not to the Senate too?
No, well, so initially it was to the House of Representatives because the coalition that we were working with that has encouraged us to do this wanted us to address it to the House of Representatives. And so that's why we did it that way. We could certainly expand it and include all of Congress. Essentially that's what it was, but it was at that time to the House of Representatives.
And I would add to Councilman McKenna's point, the House, I know they did try to pass something which the Senate did not. So it would probably, be good to send it to our senators as well, just so they could act. Mitch McConnell's just sitting on things.
Right, and so that's why we wanted to move on the House, but certainly I could, I can come forward with another one for next month that would be more comprehensive, because I don't think that the package will be approved at that time.
Okay.
That would also include all of Congress.
Okay.
I would certainly do that. As much help as we can get, as much help as American people can get to move some of these packages forward. We need it to happen. We're looking at foreclosures and evictions at a number that we've never seen before. We're looking at individuals who are not receiving their job loss benefits and people who are going hungry. So we need all the support we can to move this forward.
Question.
Councilman.
Thank you. The coalition that you're working with, did they suggest the House of Representatives because they thought maybe the turnaround time would be expedited, or is that just?
Well, it's because action was going there already. So we already had something happening there. We just wanted to make sure that they stuck to what they committed to and move forward with that. I know that on the other side, there may be some difficulties in getting a, hopefully, we'll figure it out, but there may be some difficulties in getting a plan that really addresses foreclosure, landlords, small landlords.
I know, and I
just
know you
American families in general.
I know you probably don't know, and you may know, but when do you anticipate that relief headed in this direction for those that desperately need it?
I wish it was yesterday. I wish it was months ago.
Right.
Because we have so many people who have forbearances, for instance. And so their forbearances may, well, two things with forbearances. One, it's either on the back of a loan, which means that if you have a 30-year mortgage, now you're adding more to it, or it could be that at some date, it could be January for a lot of people, for millions of homes. In January, your forbearance expires, and then you would have had to make some kind of agreement to now pay a little bit more on your mortgage. So they may say, if your mortgage is $1,000 normally, to catch up, you may now have to pay $1,500. And for many people, especially middle-class people, that's going to be a challenge for them. And so we are concerned that people who may have forbearances or may have other ways of forbearances, they may lose their homes. They may go on foreclosure, and that will increase the numbers of homes in foreclosure. And that is a concern. And that is certainly something that we are facing as a municipality, but the nation is facing.
Definitely a concern. Thank you, Director.
Director
President.
I don't know who's next.
So, go ahead, Ash. Go ahead,
as a follow-up to Councilman Armati about making it more comprehensive in who we are sending it to, have you or your office considered sending it to the president-elect now that we know that there will be new leadership in DC come January?
So, I mean, thank you for Councilman McKenna bringing this up. I think that it will be a great idea because now the resolution can include President-elect Joe Biden, which will be great.
Mr. Council President?
Yes, Mayor.
You know, I think if it's the will of the council, I think that the resolution can easily be amended before you adopt it to replace wherever it says the House of Representatives, to replace that with the Congress of the United States and the president elect and vice president. I think you can simply do that.
That would be.
That's a good idea. So, Council President, I'd like to introduce a motion to amend this language to include the Congress of the United States, which is the House and the Senate.
And I second.
As well as the vice president-elect.
As well.
Yes.
Council President.
Yes, the president-elect.
Oh, okay.
Right.
So procedurally, where are we at with the motion? What is the motion saying that we're about to vote on?
To amend it.
I introduce a new motion.
We have an amended motion on the table, and it's been properly motioned and seconded. So I'll take a roll call on that.
So point of order, I think I'm confused about what is the amended order that we're voting on, because Vice President Armati said an amended order. It was then seconded, and then the city clerk added something to that amended order motion. So what exactly is the motion?
My understanding
we are
state the entirety of your order. Vice President Armati.
Okay, so can I restate to introduce a motion to include the entire Congress, so the House and Senate, as well as the president-elect?
Vice President, that's what he said. That's what he said originally. That's what he said originally.
Representatives, the Senate, and the president-elect.
Yeah. So.
Okay.
The Senate and the Congress make up the House. What are we doing?
Well, I said the Congress. Well, that's the House and the Senate, and then I said the president-elect.
That's it.
Okay.
Okay.
Council President, did I hear you ask for a roll call?
Yes, I did. On
Councilmembers-
Vice President's amended motion.
Correct. Councilmembers Davis,
Yes.
Good,
Yes.
McKenna,
Yes.
McCray,
Yes.
Mills Ransom,
Yes.
Vice President Armati,
Yes.
Council President Holiday.
Yes.
Council President, I did have a follow-up for Director Brown. It's kind of related to this, but in terms of, those homeowners within the city that might have been negatively affected in terms of paying their mortgage, have you been working with finance to determine the need? How many people have, been displaced and or might need assistance?
Right. So our office has always been open to help people who have been impacted by foreclosure. We work through the clerk's office because the documents comes to the clerk's office and it comes to us, and we reach out to those individuals that are notified because there is a court process. However, we won't know until those filings go through the process. And so banks have to file their foreclosure proceedings, whether it's 3 months, they do it after 3 months, or whether they do it after 6 months or a year. That really is up to the financial institutions. And once they do that, they notify the clerk's office and the clerk notifies us. So that's how we stay connected to who in Plainfield will be impacted by foreclosures.
Okay.
Generally, it's after 3 months, but we have seen filings after 6 and 1 year.
But have you seen a rise so far this year, or you can't really say so far?
We can't say because a lot of the properties are in moratoriums. Are in forbearance.
Okay.
And because of the moratorium, so we don't. But we anticipate because of the level of properties that are in forbearance, those have to be reported out.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, clerk moved to resolution 32520.
Uh, 32420 was amended. Now it has to be adopted as amended.
Okay.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Roll call on
All
resolution
in favor?
32420 as amended. Council members Davis,
Yes.
Good,
Yes.
McKenna,
Yes.
McCray,
Yes.
Mills Ransom,
Yes.
Vice President Armati,
Yes.
Council President Holiday.
Yes.
It is unanimous. This resolution has been adopted. Resolution 32520 authorizing approval to purchase the Unidex pet licensing software.
Any questions from council members?
I do. You wouldn't.
Go right ahead.
Is this software is being purchased to manage the licensing process? Is that it?
Yes.
Okay. And is this, I'm guessing based on this is a cloud-based system based on that cost?
Yes.
And right now, are we allowing, will we be able to set up like an iPad kiosk of some sort at Plainfield area animal shelter where people can do their licenses there when they're getting their dogs, so that we're not having this back and forth, traversing the town during a virus sort of routine with paperwork and stuff?
I can't commit to that. I'll have to look into that.
Okay.
Director Brown, is the link going to be on the city's page the same way Vital Check, I think it's called, is on the main page?
Yes.
I just also want to commend your office because we know that animal licensing has been a thorn in our side for a while. So the fact that it's more convenient, especially now during this pandemic, to license pets, hopefully that increases the amount of people who are licensing their pets around the municipality.
Thank you.
Do we have a motion?
Moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition or abstentions? This resolution is approved.
Resolution 32620 recognizing November 21st, 2020 as National Adoption Day.
Any questions from council members or comments? Do we have a motion?
Moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposition or abstentions? This resolution is approved. Okay, may I have a motion to add resolution 327-20 to the agenda for council consideration?
So moved. So moved.
Second.
Okay, clerk, can you read that motion?
Resolution is authorizing approval for a change of scope to utilize the Morris County Co-op for the 2020 Union County Infrastructure and Municipal Aids Grant Roadway Improvement Project for milling and paving of various roads in an amount not to exceed $219,910.
Any questions from council members? Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition or abstentions? This resolution is approved. Okay, we now come to ordinances on first reading. Clerk, will you please read MC 2020-22 by title?
MC 2020-22 is an ordinance adopting a redevelopment plan for the South 2nd Street Youth Center redevelopment area.
Any questions from council members regarding this?
Yes.
Councilwoman Davis?
So, Director Jackson, in reading this redevelopment plan, does this mean that the original structure that is currently there will not be preserved as we look to add that mixed use element over there? You're on mute.
Councilwoman Davis, at this time, we're looking to keep the structure and do a gut rehab. We're hoping that the South 2nd Street Youth Center becomes the technology center for the West End industrial corridor and have advanced manufacturing customer demonstration center, as well as co-working and all those other wonderful things. So yes, we're hoping that we're able to retain the current structure and create some opportunities there.
Thank you. I'm happy to hear that because I know how much that building means to residents of the city and the historic nature that that building provided a lot of recreational activities for people in like the earlier days, for lack of a better term. But another question, do we know how accessible that that area is in terms of like bus lines, train lines, like how easy is it for people to get over there? Because it sounds like you have great plans for over there, but if it's inaccessible to people who don't drive, I think it continues to perpetuate a divide and a gap in terms of people who can afford cars or afford taxis to get over there and people who cannot.
Yeah, I don't have the numbers for the transportation in and around the area, but I will say that Injectron, which employs 150 plus people who are in manufacturing at some of the lower wages, are getting to Injectron, have been getting to Injectron. So again, we're looking to upgrade the area. There are some things that we're trying to do with the last mile associated with New Jersey Transit in that area, but I don't have the exact numbers for you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I'll now entertain a motion to adopt this ordinance on first reading.
I just have.
Oh, you had a question?
Director Jackson, when reading the redevelopment plan, and I have to confess that I saved it towards the end, so I was a little more rushed to get through it, but having been on the planning board, I kind of knew where to look for stuff. It mentions mixed use, first floor and then residential office space, et cetera, upstairs. It specifically says no residential in the basement, but it doesn't say no residential on the first floor, which has been a pretty standard policy in the city, is that we don't do first floor apartments.
Yes, so if it mixed use means commercial on the ground floor. So it does mean commercial on the ground floor.
Well, there is no, it is, they would be prohibited from
ground floor apartments. So it's silent on it, but by saying ground floor commercial, that's why In the basement, we just wanted to be absolutely clear that there were going to be no residences in the basement.
No, that was smart to do.
Yeah, I beg your pardon?
That was smart to do. To put
We just wanted to be absolutely clear about that. But again, the ground floor is for commercial only.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'll now entertain a motion to adopt this ordinance on first reading.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, clerk, may I have a roll call?
Council members Davis,
Yes.
Good,
Yes.
Kenna,
Yes.
McCray,
Yes.
Mills Ransom,
Yes.
Vice President Armati,
Yes.
Council President Hockaday.
Yes.
That's unanimous. This ordinance has been adopted on first reading. From the ordinance MC 2023, an ordinance to amend Article 13, Section 171320 of the Plainfield Land Use Ordinance, revising the fee schedule for payments to professionals for the review of applications to the Plainfield Planning Board and Board of Adjustments for escrow fees.
Any questions from council members? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to adopt this ordinance on first reading.
So moved.
So moved.
Is there a second? Can I have a roll call?
Council members Davis,
Yes.
Councilman Good,
Yes.
Councilman McKenna,
Yes.
Councilman McCray,
Yes.
Councilwoman Mills Ransom,
Yes.
Vice President Armati,
Yes.
Council President Hockaday.
Yes.
Unanimous. This ordinance has been adopted on first reading. Now come to MC 2020-24. It's an ordinance to rename East 3rd Street between Chow Road and Leland Avenue to Milt Campbell Way.
Any questions from council members?
Yes.
Comments?
I just want to say that I'm glad, Council President Hockaday, that you saw fit to put this on the agenda. I remember reaching out to you in January about doing this. So I'm glad that you were able to find a way to gauge public perception about this and eventually did put it on the agenda. So thank you.
Absolutely.
I have a quick question. Does this officially changes that stretch to Milt Campbell Way, or is it East 3rd and then above it says honorary Milt Campbell Way? I think it actually already says that now. I just wasn't sure how these ordinances work.
Corporation Counsel.
Yes, I can certainly take that. Yes. So from a post office standpoint, the street name remains the same. It is an honorary title that will be displayed above the current address.
Okay. All right.
The current, yes.
Thank you.
No problem.
I'll entertain a motion to adopt this ordinance on first reading.
Moved.
So second.
Clerk, may I have a roll call?
Moved by Councilman Good, seconded by Councilwoman Davis. Roll call on MC 2020-24. Council members Davis,
Absolutely, yes.
Councilman Good,
Yes, definitely.
Councilman McKenna,
Yes.
Councilman McCray,
Yes.
Councilwoman Mills Ransom,
Yes.
Vice President Armati,
Yes.
Council President Hockaday.
Yes.
That is unanimous. This ordinance has been adopted on first reading. Move on to MC 2020-25, which is an ordinance to amend Chapter 16, Article 19, Section 8, fees and fines with updated rates.
Any questions from council members?
Yes.
Councilwoman Davis?
Do we know currently what are the fees for surrounding towns? And can somebody just explain why there is such a significant jump in the price of parking fees?
Did we get that information?
Well, I guess it's been a long time coming for the prices to increase. You look at what the rates were going back. I mean, at $25 a month, $30 a month. That was the reason for the increase. And if you look at it on a daily basis, it doesn't come out to that much. when you do the numbers. And we took everything based on 240 days, a year, and came up with the numbers that we have. And the closest to, of course, the train station would pay the most. And it just breaks down all the way down. So on a daily basis, a daily rate, for example, meters now went from 50 cents, they're going from 50 cents to $1 an hour, subject to you guys' approval. Lots that are closest to the train station would be like, if you took on the daily basis, be like $3 a day. The further away you get, you're paying less, $2.50 a day, and from $2 a day. So, I mean, we're trying to be competitive, and this will help, of course, with everything we're doing with the utility moving forward. And these are the rates.
So, yes, thank you, Director Dabney, for that. I think the first part of my question was, do we know what other municipalities are charging for their parking lots closest to their train station? Because my concern is, and I don't know the answer, that's why I'm asking. My concern is if we're charging, I don't know, let's say $300 for the areas closest to the train station, but a Denellen or a Westfield is charging $250, I can certainly see people then going to those train stations instead. And then we kind of just, defeated the purpose of trying to get revenue here. So was that taken into account when we looked at raising the prices?
Well, we looked at this as a committee, the entire committee, that's made up of myself, of course, the police director, economic development, the VA's office, and finance. So we've all been looking into this as a group to come up with the numbers. So economic development, you might want to touch upon that piece itself.
Yeah, I would just add, Councilwoman Davis, that the parking study that was done as part of the master plan did look at rates in surrounding areas. So we did take that into account. We also, Director West actually interviewed parking authority agencies or parking bureaus in other communities as well. So there was a in-depth interview. So Director West did that for a number of those communities, as well as we have data that was done by the parking consultant.
Thank you.
And what's the ballpark percent increase, the average increase?
Oh, that varies, I guess. I guess when you talk about 60%, the closest you are. I mean, the further you get away, 50%, and then 40%. Those are the bulk of the increases.
I think, if I could, Council President, the kinds of fees do need to go up over time. And I think the hesitation is to not want to, increase them at all. And then when you finally do increase them, you're doubling them and 60%, 40%. It's like transit, says every year they're not going to raise rates. And then 4 years later, they double. So it's, I tend to think that these should be done on a regular basis, smaller increments. The 60%, 40%, I think is a little steep, especially if you're trying to get people downtown and looting areas. So that's just my opinion.
Director Dabney, to echo his point, is it possible to do something that's a bit more incremental over the years, working up towards that, as opposed to, a one and done like that?
Well, again, we sat down as a committee. This is what the numbers we came up. We thought this was something, a fair number based on increases. Nothing has gone up in years. There has been no increase at all. And again, the goal is to encourage residents and folks to use the lots further away and from the train station, because most folks are coming to the station now. So the goal was that's why we decreased the amounts the further away from the station, as opposed to where they currently are located. So,
Mr. President?
Yes, Mayor. The floor.
Yeah, this is not a one and done. I think all the points that were made are very valid. the problem that we find ourselves in is that we refuse to raise fees, you know, from time to time, let's say every year or every a couple of years, and we find ourselves in a position that we're in. And so we believe that this is a fair and reasonable adjustment at this time, but we certainly do plan to come back to you at some time in the future because we are way behind in terms of neighboring municipalities. And with all the plans we have for parking, we believe that we need to be at this level at this time. And at some point in the future, maybe a year from now, maybe 2 years from now, we will come back again to gradually increase these fees and not wait for years before adjusting these parking fees.
Council President, I'd just like to add one thing.
Sure.
If you look at the prices for a resident today for permit parking based on 240 days in the year, it is $1.50 a day that they pay for parking all day. The ones closest to the train station, what we're recommending is $3 a day. For those a little further away from the train station, it's $2.50 a day. And for those that are farther out, it's $2 a day. So to look at the increase, and I'm sure as you travel to places, you know, I'd love to be able to get a permit for $3 a day. So again, this is incremental. It's not huge, but it's moving toward, as the mayor indicated, to competitive pricing for the parking.
So, but Director Jackson, the only thing is like when we say, oh, it's only, you know, $3 a day, you add that up over the course of the month, add it up over the course of the year, that makes a difference to somebody that might be a middle-class person, right? That might be commuting into the city. So I think we have to be very careful with such a steep hike.
So for the person who is closest to the train station, when you look at those numbers, they're $60 a month. So if you want to, so if you take 720 based on our numbers, that is $60 a month. It is not a huge amount for parking. So that's $60 a month. People go to event parking and pay $20 to $35. So it's
not people, you know, who are month to month in it when you're in a recession and you've got COVID going on. So let's not assume everybody's, you know, coming home from work and going to the Springsteen concert and paying $40.
Right. But I am saying that $60 a month for parking for all day long is a reasonable price. And that's closest to the train station. That's the highest amount, $3 a day.
We get it. But listen, those people that are paying to park there, they're also paying the fare to get to the city or wherever they're going. So you add it all up. We have to be very careful what we're doing.
Yes.
I think to Councilman Armadi's point, right? People may be struggling to just come up with that $30 a month to pay for that parking. So I do see where Councilman Armadi's coming from, where we're sitting in a place saying like, hey, an extra $3 a month or an extra, you know, $30 a month isn't really going to hurt anybody. And I think that we're all at a place where we can say that because we all do reasonably well for ourselves, but that's not always the case for every resident in the city. But I think also what seems concerning about the ordinance that I had to go back and look for myself is people see $30 and that's the monthly fee, but then they see $480, not realizing that that's the annual fee. So I think that's also is a cause for concern. Like when people look at it, it seems very steep, but what you're not looking at, you're not comparing month to month, but you're comparing month to year.
Question.
Go ahead.
When, Director Jackson, when was the last increase?
I personally do not know the last increase. Dave, do you know that answer based on the ordinance?
No, I do not.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
So has there been an increase since? Has there been an increase, Mayor, since 2014?
Not in recent memory, no.
Yeah, so.
See, so my only concern is, pre-COVID, I would have said, okay, that's something we might have to look at. But since it's COVID, you have to be very careful. And we might want to consider, a slight increase and amending this to maybe $2 instead of like a $3. That's just my 2 cents.
Council Vice President, there is a $2 rate. It's a little further away, but there is a $2 rate for permit parking. So if you want the premium spot right next to the train station, then that costs you more.
A little more.
Yeah.
So Director Jackson, I understand what you're saying about, if you want premium parking, you should have to pay a little bit more. But my concern also comes in for the people who are getting off the train later at night. And they may have said, I can't afford to be closer to the train station, so I'm gonna park a little bit further away, right? And then they're concerned that they have about parking so far away. And I think Councilman Armati, kind of raises a point that if you're already struggling and you're already working long, hard hours and you're already getting off the train late, for us to then say, hey, since you can't afford to park closer, go park a little further away, is a little insensitive, especially in this time of COVID.
Yeah, and I would address your point in the following way. What the team is currently looking at is, and that's an operational issue when I say it, but the team is also looking at shuttle services from parking lots to the train station during peak hours. So that's part of looking at the overall parking bureau operation. Because we do want to get people there, we want to get them there safely. There may be times that there's inclement weather where we need to run a shuttle service. There are a number of towns that do run shuttle services to and from parking areas.
Council President, if I may just answer that question, I was previously asked about the last time we addressed fees or made any increase. The last time was 2002. So it's been 18 years since there's been an increase to our parking fees.
So I guess my question would be, if not now, when? And when is there a great time to do it? You know what I mean? Director Jackson.
Yes, it feels a little like kicking the can down the road. I don't know when there's an appropriate time to do an increase. But I think we have to look at parking and look at parking management and operations. These increases are phases. It gives an opportunity to kind of spread it across our users. So you're looking at residents, you're looking at business owners. Hopefully we can get business owners to preferably have their employees park further away. And that's why we're talking about other kinds of things like shuttle services as well.
Thank you.
Council President.
Go ahead, Mayor.
We're also talking about people who don't live in our city who park at our train station as well. And when the Corporation Council just put it in context of the year when this was last done, I think that we'll be fooling ourselves if we think that these rates are too high. And we are all sensitive to what is happening in COVID, but the city has to operate in the COVID pandemic and post-COVID. And I think that if we are to plan for the future, especially looking at the length of time that has passed since we last addressed these rates, I think that these rates are very reasonable. And many of you, or some of you, have made the point that having these big increases at once is not the best way to do it. We're trying to fix that. And this is the beginning of fixing that.
I have one more question, Council President.
Sure, Councilwoman.
Director Jackson, will there be reduced rates for people who may be senior citizens or differently able or veterans or even educational institutions? Because I saw in the ordinance that originally we had a different rate for educational institutions and business entities. So will there be a discounted rate for those educational institutions still, or will they be subject to these rates? And how will we determine which rate they pay, whether they pay the resident rate or whether they pay the non-resident rate?
The educational would pay the non-residential rate. The first part of your questions, I'm sorry, was
would there
seniors
be reduced? Yes.
Yeah. So again, part of parking operations. So the sooner that we can move this forward in terms of the parking utility, is to look at seniors. I mean, we shuttle seniors around today, to different services. And so to get a senior to the train station shouldn't be a problem for us. So these rules may have been at a time when people were getting themselves seniors were getting themselves and parking in the lots. But if you actually look at the permit holders that we've looked at across some of these lots, a lot of them are business owners who have taken out a number of parking spaces for their employees. And as the mayor indicated, our parking lots are not only used by residents, but they're people from outside of our community using our parking lots as well.
Because of the low cost.
Well, yeah, very extremely low cost.
Again, there's no numbers here. It's just a lot of people do, and some people come in, and it's a lot of non-residents, but no numbers. So we don't know what that is. It's just.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion to adopt this ordinance on first reading. Is there a second?
Second. What are we doing?
Okay. Clerk, can I have a roll call?
Roll call MC 2020-25. Council members Davis.
No.
Councilman Good.
Yes.
Councilman McKenna.
No.
Councilman McCray.
Yes.
Councilwoman Mills Ransom.
Yes.
Vice President Armati.
No.
Council President Hockaday.
Yes.
4 in favor, 3 opposed. Resolution's been. Sorry, ordinance has been adopted on first reading. Ordinance 2020-26 is an ordinance to amend section 5:1-8, renewal of licenses for dogs, the municipal code of the city of Plainfield.
Any questions from council members?
Yes. Director Brown, once again, I am happy with the work that you're doing with dog licenses. Not only have you made it easier for people to get licenses online, you have also extended the time in which people can have their dog licenses, which will hopefully, again, help with the increase of people who are actually looking to license their dogs in this municipality. So again, you should be applauded for your hard work.
Thank you.
And if I may be allowed to say, I think that this is awesome, that we are amending this. And I think it would be very rough if we didn't for the municipality.
All right.
Thank you.
I'll just add, I've been a proponent of going with the 3-year that the state allows, and I appreciate you putting this in and making that change. I think it makes life easier for residents to do it 3 years instead of every year.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion.
Moved.
Second.
Clerk, may I have a roll call?
Roll call MC 2020-26. Council members Davis.
Yes.
Councilman Good.
Yes, sir.
Councilman McKenna.
Very much, yes.
Councilman McCray.
Yes.
Councilwoman Mills Ransom.
Yes.
President Armati.
Yes.
Council President Hockaday.
Yes.
That is unanimous. This ordinance has been adopted on first reading.
Okay, we'll now move to general comments. Total of 60 minutes has been allocated for all public comments to be presented. Each speaker will be allotted 5 minutes. If you wish to be heard, please hit the hand icon to be recognized and you will be unmuted. Give your name and address for the record. Each speaker will be given 3 minutes. The floor, is it 3 or 5? I think it's clarify whether it's 3 or 5. Clerk.
5 minutes.
5.
5 minutes.
Okay. Okay. The floor is now open.
We got hands up. Are we waiting?
Yep. Somebody's hands up. We have quite a few. I think 6. Talking is permitted by Tim and Bonita.
Good evening, Council. My name is Bonita Burke, and I've recently moved to Plainfield with my husband. And
Yes, address, please. Street address, please.
oh, sorry, 969 Mayfair Way.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. And I myself have sat in a smaller, as a council member in a smaller community. And initially the feedback I have is the work and the caring that is demonstrated in the back and forth of your hearings is so important as a member of the public. This is the first time that I have attended your meetings, and I look forward to attending regularly. I know that I was asking and posting some questions while you folks were having your colloquy concerning issues. And I don't know to the extent that it's possible, I'm sure it is, we can, put people on the moon and everything, that the members of the public who are in attendance can see each other and that we can participate perhaps or give you guys some feedback about our questions as you're doing your job. I mean, I understand that it's not for the public to participate during your colloquies, but this is such a unique opportunity that COVID has shown us to have the ability to be able to provide written questions or comments that may lead to more clarity and ultimately more participation in these meetings and in our communities. I know I'm inspired by seeing some of the discussions that went back and forth here tonight. And I want to thank you all for your time and your commitment. But I hope that you will think about a way where perhaps the members who are in attendance could be, could participate on their own sideboard and also have the benefit of listening to your colloquy. So if anybody has any thoughts or whatever, I'm happy to hear it. If not, I just want to say thank you, and I'll look forward to attending the next meeting.
Yeah, and thank you for your service.
Yes, yes.
Thank you for your comments. I also did see the various things that you wrote throughout the meeting. I'm sure other council members and perhaps anybody logged on, if they were in the chat window, is able to see the commentary. So in that way, we were able to see. So thank you for your active participation and thank you for attending the meeting. Who's next? Okay, Nicole.
Good
You're
evening.
unmuted.
Yes, good evening.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yes, name and address for the record, please.
Nicole Mingo Horton, 1366 St. Nicholas Boulevard. I I just wanted to kind of piggyback on what the previous speaker was saying about the chat section. I did put something in the chat that I was asking the clerk to get closer to the microphone because at times it was difficult to hear him. I don't know if anyone is actively monitoring the chat, but it may be a good idea to do that just in case there are some technical difficulties that we as participants are encountering, so that maybe those adjustments could be made during the meeting. The other thing was I noticed that about halfway through the meeting that the chat was disabled. So I'm not sure what the reason was for that, but I'm sure that if you set some ground rules about how the chat should be used, that there would not be a need to disable that feature when you're in the meeting. The main thing that I wanted to speak about was I am glad that, you know, we are able to participate or be able to attend the meetings in Zoom. However, you state at the beginning of every meeting that you follow the open public meeting law by, you know, sending notice to the Courier News, but nowhere, at least not anywhere obvious, on the city's website is the actual link to get into the Zoom session. I struggle with this every single time I want to attend a city council meeting. So although you are making the proper notice in the newspaper, if ultimately there is no way for the residents to figure out how to get in the meeting, then it's really not an appropriate notice. I'm not understanding why on the same page where you post your meeting schedule and you're posting the agenda and all the supporting documentation for the ordinances and the resolutions, that there cannot be also a link to get into the actual Zoom session. You know, if it's a security issue, I don't know what it is, but, you know, you can always ask people to, you know, register and send them the link confidentially through their email. But we have to do a better job of making the link available. The only reason I was able to get in tonight was because I went to someone else and said, hey, do you have this link? Because I can't find it. And they did. And because I was not able to find the link, I came in, you know, a few minutes late. So I wasn't aware where you were on the agenda. And unfortunately, I missed the first public comment section where you have an opportunity to comment on everything that's on the agenda. You guys had a lot of things on the agenda tonight. And because that's right at the beginning of your session and there is no other opportunity to comment throughout the entire meeting, I lost that opportunity. So it was a double hit for me. And I just hope that we can do a better job. You know, like I said, I think the format is great. I just hope that we can do a better job of making this meeting session more accessible to us as residents so you can get better attendance.
I would agree with Ms.
Thanks for your comments. You know, I will ask that the IT department of the clerk's office just paste the link wherever there's in any instance where the link could go where people can get information regarding these meetings.
Council President, just to interject, so I have a copy of the agenda for tonight's meeting, and then like underneath, you know, the title, the date, the time, and the place, it says video conference with the Zoom link. So, and I posted this from the city's website. So the general public, if you do go to search for the council agenda, it's usually on the front page. So hopefully for the future.
It is buried down deep in there, but I think it needs to be right at the front of the thing. We send out email blasts for everything, but we can't send one out with a Zoom link. I mean, are we afraid of attend?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we
public
should
comment
be shy about the Zoom link. You know, the more it appears, the merrier, and it's easier when it's clickable rather than something you have to type out in full. You know, convenience is always going to be our friend regarding that. So I'm fine.
I said I do have an email distribution list of about 500 residents. I posted on the agenda. It's also posted, it is posted on the website, but it can be posted in a more prominent place. So I'll make sure that I work with the IT department to make sure that it's as clear and as visible as possible so that everybody will not have a problem. You click right on the website and it should be right there.
All right, thank you, Mr. Bieniek. Mr. Michello, can you just speak briefly regarding the comments and whether or not those can be active during the meeting?
Yes, thank you, Council President. Tonight, for the first time, I became aware that there was ongoing chat, texts while the meeting was happening. As soon as I became aware of it, I immediately reached out to the clerks to ask him to disable that function. That's a violation of the Open Public Meetings Act. We have a designated section for public comment, both at the beginning of the meeting with regard to ordinances and resolutions, and then later on a general public comment. The OPMA does not allow for a running commentary during the meeting. So I encourage people to, be part of our meeting, to participate in both public comment sections. But the OPMA does not allow for continuous dialogue with council members while the meeting is ongoing.
Okay, so let's see. Ms. Burwinkle is next.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, this is Mary Burwinkle, 1785 Sleepy Hollow Lane. I hope everybody is safe and healthy and that your families are as well. I have one quick comment. I don't expect an answer tonight on this, but it's my understanding that the city has appealed the lower court's denial to sell the Bierstadt paintings. And I'm confused about why we never hear anything about this at city council meetings. And I guess I would like to know, like, who has the right to sell like millions of dollars worth of city property, and also like what budget line item is being used to fund this, because this isn't a defense by council, this is an offense. This is we're the plaintiff in this one. So again, I don't need, this has been a long meeting and I don't need this answer tonight, and you all know where I am, but thank you very much.
Thank you for your question, comment. Whenever you have a response, you can answer that, whether it's at this meeting or the next, whenever you want to brief us on the status of that, Counselor. I'll leave it to your discretion. Okay.
Thank you, Council President. If at any time you as Council President would like an update with regard to that matter, I certainly, as it's pending litigation, I would advise the Council, but that would not be something that would be discussed in a public session.
All right, thank you. There's a caller that is now enabled. You're unmuted.
Yes. Hi, am I on?
Yes, you are. State your name and address for the record.
Very good. It's Marie and Sari, Watchung Avenue. And just two quick things. One, regarding the Zoom conference. Some of us dinosaurs don't use screen time. I did call the city clerk today to get the phone number for call in. They said they would call back. I did not get a call back. Fortunately, I was able to locate it and call in. But again, just perhaps putting the option for a phone call in would help. The second thing, and more importantly, integrity, the word of the day. I'm really glad that it was mentioned that true and factual information is critical to our operation in this city. Yet in September meeting of 2020, the council followed the leader based on an orchestrated and anecdotal meeting which had
people give non-factual information regarding why there should be a deer kill. I would like to offer some facts tonight. One of the issues made was deer versus auto, and listening to the comments, you would believe that deer were leaping out in front of people, and there were terrible accidents on a daily basis. I actually did some research in the almost 13 months from last October to this October. The deer auto accidents numbered 14, so that's just a little over one a month. Curiously, auto versus pedestrian was 46, which is more than 3 times. And that's kind of important. But then we go on to auto versus auto at stop signs, and we have 267, which is almost triple what it was the year before. Statistics are important. Statistics can be skewed, but these are factual. The auto versus auto at stop signs is almost triple the year before. Again, the auto versus pedestrian more than 3 times. And then we have deer versus auto at 14. It seems to me we have a driving problem, and we have speeding, we have distracted driving. That's all very important. But to invite the county to come in and use a small parcel of our municipal land to slaughter deer is just meaningless for the residents. It may serve a purpose for the administration. It does not for the residents. I urge you to go back to what you decided on last September 2019, which was a win-win for everyone except the county hunters. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Ms. Pivovar, you're unmuted. Name and address for the record.
Okay, can you hear me now?
We can, yes.
Okay, Nancy Pivovar, 1129 Myrtle Avenue. I just have a couple of comments, and I hope you take them in a positive way. MC 2020-24, where you're renaming the section Mill Campbell Way. It's a long time coming. I looked at the ordinance, and I think I would respectfully request or appreciate an addition to a whereas, because Milt Campbell was a Plainfield High School graduate. He won the silver medal during the 1952 Olympics, the decathlon, when he was a junior in Plainfield High School. And I think it would be a good way to recognize Plainfield High School. I grew up with a brother who always talked about Milt Campbell, even though he was like 10 years behind him. But in my family, he's a legend in Plainfield High School. And I think they just omitted it, maybe because they didn't have the knowledge, but I think it would go a long way to help some of our students understand the importance. I also would request that when you do this ordinance, that there's a conversation with the postmaster of Plainfield and maybe the district manager of the Postal Service. I'm not speaking on their behalf, but as a long time retiree of the Postal Service. I know how confusing addresses can be and how customers just take it upon themselves to change their address without without the proper notifications and things. And I know you're not changing the street name as such, but people have a tendency just to think that they can do it. And there is a standard process for address management. And I think a conversation with the Postal Service would help because of all the years where we've had to try to figure out where people live. That's just a constructive idea. I also heard something positive tonight about the South Second Street Youth Center. As a longtime resident of the West End, I would hope, and I appreciated the fact that the consideration is to save that building and to gut it on the interior, because that building has a lot of history, being the industrial center of the West End of Plainfield, and also Mack Truck, also Parliament Funkadelic, also the great boxers that we had there, South Second Street Youth Center, and also the students from Plainfield High School had to take refuge there during the Plainfield school riots. And it was the only safe place that they could be. And they lived there for so long, and it has a lot of Plainfield history. And I would hate to see the building down. And that was a positive comment that I heard. Also, as far as New Jersey Transit, there's a bus line on West Front Street, Grand Avenue, and Clinton Avenue. It's a block and a half, 2 blocks away. But New Jersey Transit 113 runs that line, and so does the 59 bus, just so you know. It doesn't run down South Second Street, but it does run down West Front Street. And also, I'm also concerned about the COVID new restrictions that the governor just put in place. And I hope that the city contacts some of the restaurants and bars in the area so that they know that there's going to be new restrictions, so that nobody gets cited for, not doing what they're supposed to make sure that there's no issues. But the governor just extended the restrictions, and I really appreciate and I want to congratulate those who were reelected, and at least some of us can now get some rest. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, Gloria, you're now talking is now permitted. Name and address for the record, please.
Gloria Binkowski, 1117 Woodmere Place, longtime resident. And I live near the Cushing Road retention basin and the planned site of the deer kill this coming January. And you've talked in the past about quality of life. And for me, it's a quality of life issue. It's an assault on the quality of my life and my neighbors' lives. Many of us who believe in peaceful coexistence with deer and are really just appalled at the decision in September. Decision, I don't know if it was a decision. Didn't appear to be a decision of the council. It appeared to be an order of the mayor. And I don't know who he takes his orders from. But anyway, it is an assault on quality of life. It's a very cruel form of killing by crossbow. It's a painful death if the deer does die quickly, and many deer don't die quickly, and they may run onto people's properties and into the street. And there may be sharp objects that remain from the crossbow itself, left in the Cushing Road detention basin. And so it's a cruel thing. And these hunts have been going on for over 25 years in Union County. And there are more and more complaints about deer-human interactions, negative deer-human interactions. Albert Einstein had a quote saying that insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different results. So that makes the deer kill not only cruel, but insane. So I hope you will do something to rescind that decision. Now, back in 2017, the first deer killed, Mr. Dabney was quite candid in saying, well, we're doing this because residents are complaining about deer eating their residential plantings. So we know that's pretty much the reason that this is going on, aside from hunters in Union County wanting to have something to kill. And again, you know, insanity is the same thing, is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. So stop planting those hostas, because the same result is going to occur. They're going to be eaten and people are going to be complaining. We're in the new norm here now. Deer are always going to be with us. And I was struck by the September meeting when many of Mayor Mapp's neighbors were talking about how, and an inordinate number, how their grandchildren could not play on the lawn because of deer droppings. And I mean, I see, in my opinion, I see children playing on lawns as often as I see people on their front porch in their rocking chair, which is not very much at all. But be it as it may, if there's deer poo in your yard, you can just clean it up as you might sweep up leaves. And if you have concerns about the health, your health, contact the New Jersey Health Department for good information. I do feel that many of these people really, their concern is the plantings, and they're hiding behind the children's health as a concern. And you have to wonder, what would their grandchildren think if they knew that grandma and grandpa were using them as an excuse to support a deer kill? I hope, again, that you'll reverse your decision. Let's have peaceful coexistence. Let's have a peaceful Plainfield. Let's take the high road. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Sam Sakitha Cooper, 90 Brokaw Boulevard. I want to start off on a good note before I get to the stuff that I think is, should we say, not so good. I want to publicly thank Councilwoman Ashley and Director Dabney and the mayor for moving so swiftly on my concerns regarding graffiti on some of the buildings in Plainfield a week or two ago. There was some language that I felt was inappropriate, not to mention it was graffiti. And I reached out, and by the end of the day, it was handled. However, those same vandals did come back a day or two later, and they marked up the building again, and the owner was notified again, and they took care of it. But again, I just want to say thank you. It was nice to be able to work with the city in keeping us clean, keeping our integrity and the beautification that we're working so hard to promote. So again, publicly want to thank them for that. I want to speak to Dr. West and Dr. Brown in reference to the forbearance and the tax appeals. Dr. West made a comment about, hoping that the residents would be able to continue to pay, the rates that are assessed to the properties. And as Dr. Brown indicated, where a lot of the homeowners are in a forbearance period right now, and as foreclosures will eminently probably start next year, there's going to be an issue. And I would just say to you all, meaning Director West and Director Brown, that perhaps you would consider thinking about promoting the tax appeals for those people who are struggling already, who are going to have this forbearance either lifted or they're going to go into loan modifications. Some of the condos that are in Plainfield, I know personally on the west end of town, those condos are 3 bedrooms, 1.5 baths, no basements, no garage, and some of those taxes are $8,000, which is more than single family residences in an average of the city. So knowing that people have done tax appeals on those condos and they're now $4,000 and $5,000, some of those homeowners are struggling in reference to paying their mortgage and the taxes. So if there's a way that we could put forth an effort to assist them with a reduction as opposed to just allowing them to drown, I think that's something that we could do to assist the residents of the city. Dr. Dabney talked about the opening of the street and that, and I'm not saying this to, oppose what he said. I'm just saying that the way it came about, or the way it was delivered, or the way I received it, was that the homeowner should know, public utilities should know. I am someone who has had to have the city involved in having the street opened. It can be a very belaboring process, to the point where I had to involve the Board of Public Utilities. In the case of an emergency, a homeowner does not know certain things. They don't know that there's a load sheet. They don't know what, certain BPUs or things that are needed. So if there's something we could do to that to assist them, if there's something on the website that we could put, that would be great. Talking fast because 5 minutes goes, really quickly. The other thing that I would like to ditto is that Ms. Horton spoke about the website. I too had difficulty tonight trying to get on. That link that some of you just spoke about that said it was clearly displayed, inaccurate. It is not on the city's website as of right now. If you go to the city's website, if you click on the calendar, if you click on the purple section where it has 7 p.m., you click on that link, there is a PDF that pops up that has nothing to do with tonight's meeting. There is nothing on the City Hall Facebook page. There is nothing in the email that came out from the mayor today at 5 p.m. And if you want us to be engaged, allow us the opportunity and give us the tools and the resources so that we can participate. It's great that one of the council people put it in one of the Facebook formats. I've said this to you all before. The website is horrific. I don't want to hear about someone accepting responsibility for its inaccuracies and inadequacies. It is horrific. You cannot find anything. Directly on the very front of the page, you have an update to the meeting for tonight, which again is another PDF. There is nothing in that drop down on the very home page of the City Hall website tonight that says this is the link, 7 p.m., etc. So I would ask that you please look again at the website and help us out so that we can communicate and be active participants in the future. Thank you all.
Thank you, Ms. Cooper. Okay. I'll now accept a motion to adjourn public comment.
So move.
Second.
There's still a hand up.
I think that that person already spoke.
But if everybody else spoke, they can speak again.
Incorrect. You only get to speak once.
Council President, you can only speak one time in public comment session per our rules.
Okay. Thank you for the guidance. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any oppositions? Abstentions? Okay, public comment is now closed. May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any oppositions or abstentions? Okay, thank you. The meeting is adjourned.